Hey guys, my name is Ajay and I'm one of the game masters in Unwind Cafe, and today we're going to be going through the game 5-minute dungeon. I'm going to take you through the gameplay. I'm going to give you the brief rules of it, the setup depending on the number of players, because a 3-player game is different from a 5-player game. We're going to go through them step by step, and I'm going to tell you just how much of a fun this game can be. It's a cooperative game, but don't be thrown off by the genre, because it's a lot of fun. It's very chaotic and you're going to be screaming throughout. So let's start with it. So the game is called 5-minute dungeon. The basic idea is for you to work together and reach your objective, which is the dungeon boss. When you do reach him, you're going to have to fight him or it or whatever the person is, because it's going to be a monster at the end of the day, and defeat it as a team. Even if one of you fails, everyone fails. These are all the different dungeon masters you're going to be facing. We'll get to them in a bit. These are the 5 different characters that you're going to be using, because the game can be played by up to 5 players. These are going to be your character cards depending on which character you choose. We have got the paladin, we have got the assassin, the warrior, so on and so forth. Finally, we've got the minions, the monsters, the other mini bosses you'll be facing before you reach the actual final boss. Each of them will be seen by a card that looks like this, and the mini bosses are special because they're going to have a skull on them. These are all the different monsters you're going to have to defeat before you reach the dungeon master. Now we're going to move on to the setup phase. We need to begin by choosing a character for each of us. You're going to take the character card that corresponds to each of these characters and give them to all 3 players. I'm going to put all their cards in the draw pile right over there. Now, each person begins with 5 cards in their hand if it's a 2-player game, 3 cards if it's a 5-player game, and since our scenario is a 3-player game, we're going to use 4 cards each. The way you play it, remember, you have to work together to defeat all of these monsters. The number of monsters you're going to use is mentioned clearly on the boss card that you're going to play. This one requires 20. So we're going to use 20 monsters that I've already kept ready right over here. The way you defeat the monster is each of them are going to have different requirements. Like this person needs 2 scrolls and 1 shield in order to be defeated. Those requirements can be seen on our player cards. Each of us are going to have different sets of these equipment or resources, and you're going to try to complete the requirements of the monsters by playing cards from your hand. Like for example, this person needs 2 scrolls. I've got 1. I'm going to ask my colleagues if any of them have any. Do you have a scroll? If he or she says yes, they're going to play theirs. Now we still need a shield, which also this person seems to have. There we go. We have defeated that monster. We go next. At all times, you need to make sure that you have 4 cards in your hand. So if you play any number of cards, take back up to 4. Regardless of how many cards you use, always make sure you have 4 cards in your hand. We've got shield, again, will be one of the requirements. We've got jump. We've got a sword. This card is a little special though. We'll come back to that in just a second. Arrows, and finally scrolls. These are the 5 different resources, and this card is special because it has a sword and a scroll, so it can be used as both depending on your requirement. Apart from these basic cards, we've also got a few special cards such as this that lets you defeat an obstacle. As you can see, you don't need to use the other requirements, because as soon as you get an obstacle like this, one of you can just play a card that says defeat an obstacle and just get rid of this. You don't need to meet the requirements. So the most important thing in this game is communication. You need to make sure that you use 1 card to defeat an obstacle instead of wasting 3 resources. So far we have learned how to defeat these regular monsters. Let's come to the mini bosses. Like I said, the mini bosses are special because they are the only ones that have a skull at the back, and they have quite a few requirements as opposed to having something like that, which is just 3. They've got 6. So again, they're just like any other card. You're going to have to meet the requirements But try not to waste your cards, because once your draw pile runs out, you're done. You're going to have to rely on your teammates to save you. You can't do anything. If every one of your cards run out, you lose. Apart from this, you'll also notice that each of your characters have a special ability written at the bottom. Like for example, the ninja gets to discard 3 cards to defeat any obstacle. So for example, remember the obstacle that we faced a little while ago? If you were to get an obstacle like that, you just discard 3 cards and get rid of the obstacle all by itself. You don't need to reach the requirements. This way you're going to be playing the dungeon one at a time. Finish the boss number 1, go to boss number 2. We've got 3, 4 and 5. It gets harder as you go. As you can see, the last boss has 40 cards, and to defeat that person you need all of these requirements at the end. So that's the game, 5-minute dungeon. It's quite popular and you'll see why if you just give it a shot.